My name is Allan One Spot. My Sarsi name is Gayeage. So that was given to me a long time ago. My ancestors were at the signing of the Treaty 7. My great-great-grandfather was 9 years old at the time, and that's when he saw the signing of the Treaty 7. And they were there. He had a sister who lived in North Pagan, only one sibling, my grandfather. So that's as far as the one spots go, I guess.
What does land acknowledgement mean to you?
Land acknowledgement to me, basically, as described, but like I say, the Articles of a Treaty, which describes the Sarsi, puts us here as who we are. And as being the oldest linguistic group in the western part here, we encouraged the government to come out and make treaty because they knew that we were the oldest linguistic group at the Paskins. And along with our allies, our beautiful Blackfoot, the Stony, and the North Pagan, the Pagan bloods, we came into this agreement, whereas we will all live peacefully together. And that was one of the prime, other than protecting our buffalo and keeping us away from those whiskey traders, that is one of the reasons why we signed a Treaty 7, because of that.
Do you feel it's a form of reconciliation, a true commitment, or what are your thoughts on land acknowledgement? Is it a good idea?
Well, yes, it is. It's because we do. That's the reason why we signed the treaties, is because we love them. We gave this country to them. And by giving it to them, in exchange for that treaty, we gave them the power to destroy themselves, the power of the sun, which is the uranium. So I feel kind of guilty about signing it too, but they have to learn. And I'm a residential school survivor also. I was at the Clooney Residential School back in 1965. And as far as today is concerned, I think reconciliation is just apartheid flipped over again. And then you've got this fox guarding the hen house still. It's not really true. And in my view, I forgive the Pope. Reason being is that if we take anything from this man or them, we're not Indians. So what we need is a forgiveness treaty other than a peace treaty. And I believe that this man here, it was in the Canadian government that they brought these people upon us. And I know that a Canadian would never do that to us Indian people. There was some kind of an evil involved here. Abusive behavior by the people in power, and especially the ones that ran the residential schools. And I was there. There was a lot of kids that couldn't see the board, and they were getting yelled at and slapped and hit, but they needed glasses. And if you look at all those kids, they don't have glasses. Look at them. Just the nuns had glasses, and the priests had, but the kids, we didn't have glasses. That's why a lot of them got yelled at for not seeing the board. And that's where the abuse came from, because they weren't providing for us. And when I got back from the residential school, I was skin and bones. So in my mind, it's just flipped over. Apartheid is just reconciliation. There's nothing there. And I don't believe in sending this cowboy posse to Rome. That's a waste of time. We need to look at Stephen Harper's apology in 2008 and reject it and just say, look, You know, we need trillions. We don't need this handout.
So what I'm hearing is that land acknowledgement, reconciliation, I guess it's another tool of colonization meant to keep us in the past tense, you know, to speak about territorial acknowledgement in the past continues that narrative. And I guess when we talk about land acknowledgement, would you say it's just lip service as opposed to real systemic change in terms of reconciling
I believe
the past in terms of the residential school system? What are your thoughts on that? Do you feel
I believe it's a form of brainwashing, and they're not fooling me, because right now they have there's a stigma. Okay, you've got Ekahele on the other side of the world over there fighting. How do you get Kahele to shake hands and go to their own corners? How do you do that? Yet they meet them at the airport. They give them a white hat and they say, now go shoot the Indians. So I'm stuck in the middle of those guys fighting, them coming out, and the stigma of a white hat and a cowboy. Now go shoot. That's a big joke. Now, how do you differentiate that? It's a big joke when they get off the plane. That's, you know, the big Wild West thing. And we're stuck right in the middle of it. Now, what do we do now? Who fixes that? The SARS, we're trying to establish ourselves out there as a nation. We're not, this is not to continue the stigma of cowboys and Indians. Even the word teepee is a Hollywood word. They've been brainwashed to use it everywhere. Sinekua, that's my home.
So getting back to the meaning, I guess, of land acknowledgement, in your mind, you know, the Calgary has come forward and erected 27 monuments around Calgary, right, to acknowledge, you know, the nations of Treaty Number 7, right?
Mm.
What are your thoughts on that? Is that a good idea what needs to happen? Maybe understanding?
Right now, the curriculum is at 0. You go anywhere inside the school system, it's at 0. They don't know anything about the Sarcee, nor our beautiful Blackfoot, nor our beautiful Stoney. They don't know anything about us. Yet they're moving ahead with the curriculum. I don't understand. Why is that? You got English still on your board. That's not how you spell it. See, you're teaching the people wrong. And when you teach the people wrong, we can't receive them in a good way and teach them properly. If we keep using English, our young people are not going to get the alveolars, the fricatives, the inside thing, the throat, the glottalizes. If they don't get that, we cannot teach them properly. And with these apps and mechanical and machines that we're using, that's all wrong. So the media has done a lot to destroy our language. And it's not helping it's on TV because they're not spelling it and they're not seeing it. So what you see is the truth, not what you hear. We used to dress as wolves, the One Spots, a long time ago, and that's how we used to dress, in wolf style. We were up to this place called Dunvegan. It's all way up in northern Alberta, a place called Dunvegan. There were 6 of us on an excursion, and we were trying to avoid this one settlement of Dunvegan, and we were attacked by these Crees. And they killed all but one of us. One of them got away to come back and tell the story. But up there, they killed 5 of us, and 3 of them were One Spots up there. And one of them came back and said that there was when they were there, They had a priest who was writing in his diary, Lacombe, Father Lacombe. And all this is public information. You can go into the library and study this stuff. He wrote in his diary there that his good Christianized Crees were attacked by these Tetanais. Now, that's a quasi-neo-French dirty word for savage. And they used to call us La Sauvage in the residential school. I thought that was Sarsi, but it was you savage. That's what it meant. So how did this word from his book get to our nation? See, when you say that to me, you're insulting me. So I don't really accept what you say. I'd rather be a Sarsi.
Oh, okay.
You may refer to me as the Sarsi. And what I tell you, that's what the Sarsi said. So you can tell your superior that you spoke to the Sarsi today. Unfortunately, the Sarsi, there's a little town out there it's called Veteran, north of Veteran. There's 3 hills. One of them looks like a nose. That's what the Sarsi called Nose Hill. So that's where Nose Hill is, over there. This Nose Hill here is just a name. But we can tell that story through that. And Medicine Hat. So it's a Nayeti. It's a Sarsi was wearing this medicine hat. He got killed there by somebody. And they found that hat there. So they named that city Medicine Hat. So that was a Sarsi that got killed there. You know, they didn't really used to, because we spoke a different language, they didn't really like us around, you know, but they held us around anyway because we were very fierce, you know, allies.
The Elbow River.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a word for Calgary?
Nagutsis means same thing. Nagutsis meaning the elbows. Yeah.
Okay.
So you would say nagutsis. I'm going to Calgary. See, that's how they say it.
Do you know why they called it elbow?
Well, it was when the bow and the elbow met. That's where the most sacred place for the Sarsi was rated, where the 2 rivers met. And the most sacred time for them was before the sun come up. That's when they would smudge themselves. That was the only time they'd smudge, us before the sun came up. Mm-hmm. And that was a very sacred time for the Sarsi.
Are there any other areas that stand out in your mind that you can share with the visiting public to these areas?
Well, there used to be a 13,500-year-old site where they built the highway, but we never did get an archaeological overview of it because people like myself weren't consulted at the time. And it was, I believe, Mayor Nenshi said they never consulted me at all. Even with the language, they have never consulted me. So I'm still waiting. And it's to help. You know, I'm not trying to razz. It's something that back in, I think it was 1930s, a Jesuit priest went up to Nanuktitut, okay? He starts writing down all these Cyrillics about the language. It was a Jesuit priest, so he wrote it down, and then he gave it to the government and said, this is their language. Now, if you look in how they do their language, it's not right because it was written by a white man. It wasn't written by Indian people. And again, what I propose and my ambition is to produce this from an Indian, to give it to the world so that we can teach Blackfoot, Cree, Stonies, Ukrainians, we can teach them properly when they come to see the Sarsi. So you have to come and meet the Sarsi in order to get the language properly. And that's my intentions. To teach the kids, especially the young ones that are coming back who don't know the language. We have to teach them properly. We have to teach them all these little chops and phonetics and all these little asperatives, you know.
Are you a linguist yourself?
I'd like to be, but I'm just waiting for them to consult me, that's all.
Okay. So, any other stories you want to share with us? So you talked about the confluence of the bow and the elbow. What about when you were growing up? I know there's a lot of stories around the Department of National Defense, that area. What kind of relationship was that for the SRC and the, I guess, Canadian government and military? What kind of
Well, in my mind, I don't agree with how they kind of footstepped across Canada and stepped on every nation. They made every nation a bomb site. Or if you look right across the nations, every one of the was a garrison. And the D&D over here in was a garrison. So they took quite advantage of Indian reservations right across this nation for some reason, you know. And when you say it was beneficial, I don't know. I think it was just a lie, just another lie. Because right now, like I say, there's conflict coming, and I don't think that we should give any quarter or anything or any cooperation. And we're not saying that. There's a lot of things we're not saying. And the Canadian government is just distracting. They're taking away the attention from the real issue, reconciliation. It's to me, it's just a word. It doesn't have any. It doesn't have anything. They don't have the capacity to hold our culture. Even this library doesn't have the capacity to hold us. Metaphysical and spiritual keeps us. Nothing here keeps us. That's we have to get away from this brainwashing and teach ourselves our own ways. If we don't do that, the media is just going to destroy us. It's you and I, or we have to put our hearts together. If us Indian people don't put our hearts together. There was a story about my ancestors where they went out to hunt buffalo. So we're going to write that story. He went out and he wounded one buffalo and he took off, but he killed one. So he told his son to stay with this one while he went out and got the other one. So he cut it up like this, and then he pulled out the guts. So he went out, he left his son there, and then he went out, and then a storm hit. Those storms on the prairie, they last for 2 days. And he was really worried about his son when he got the other one. It was blowing for about 3 days. And then the 4th day, he saw the clearing of the weather, and then he guided his back using the stars, Pleiades especially. So he went over there, and he started digging out the thing. He thought his son was dead, but his son popped out of that buffalo, and then he was alive. So the buffalo actually saved the boy. So later on in life, he wrote that. He made a Kua, Senekua, our lodge. And then he painted that story on that lodge about that buffalo, the Pleiades, and all the months, and how he went in there and he got saved. So that was one of the stories we're going to paint on that, on one of the.
Your lodge.
Yeah, and that's a real story that happened a long time ago. And at that time, about 600, we had a water event where it separated our people. And that was about 600. The Navajo got there in 850. Yeah, about 850, they got to the Navajo Reserve. And between 600 and about 800, things start happening around here. So that's basically how we ended up more over towards the southern area. If you go down and walk to Columbia, the Hupas, you've got the mosquitoes, the Ramas, down in Nicaragua, Bluefields. You've got our linguistic group down a little farther, and it's even go down to Argentina. There's a linguistic group that has the same dialect as we have. So you can trace it all the way down and all the way up Tlingits, Alaska, Mackenzie Delta. There's the linguistic group is all along the coast. You can follow it. The only thing that I don't agree with was if you look at the treaties, they use English, like even Blackfoot. And I disagree with that. We should be phonetically producing the language, because this English, it's too limited. It doesn't work. It doesn't have the like I say, the spiritual and the metaphysical within it. If you use English, you lose a lot. You lose a lot.